Howdy and welcome back to The Road, the Great Canadian Open Winter 2026. My name is Clarence and this is my video series as you follow me as I paint up my Brotherhood Without Banners army 1 hour a day, 1 day at a time. The whole point of the series is for me to help people who are having trouble painting their armies, to help people who are not motivated to paint, to show you that it's not that hard painting an army. The key is to be regular. The key is to have a technique that you can manage. I think we all want to have gloriously beautiful miniatures, and that takes time. And if you've got the drive to paint carefully, that's awesome. But for a lot of us, I know we've got a big pile of shame, and we don't know how to dig our way out. And how do you dig your way out? How do you eat an elephant 1 bite at a time? How do you paint an army 1 hour at a time, in my case? So, yeah, I encourage you to try out some Slapchop. I encourage you to, get your brushes out, get your contrast paints out, and try it. Slapchop looks better than unpainted, looks better than just prime. So, get moving. If you think you were going to paint your army and you're waiting for the right time and you're waiting for the right conditions, it's not going to happen. Just get going, sit down. The hardest step is the first step. So yeah. And secondly, if you're from around the Greater Toronto area, come on down to the Great Canadian Open, which is happening January 10th and 11th. Tickets are linked in the description box below. It's going to be a great time. We're going to have a 32-player A Song of Ice and Fire tournament over 2 days, 5 games. It is being hosted by the Great Canadian, by TGX, which is the Gaming Expo, which is the love child of Lionel Miranda from X Planet Games. So we had a great room last time, very spacious, and we're going to have a great time this time too. So please join us. Let's all play this great game together. With that rant out of the way, let's take a look at where we're at and what the next step is. So this is where we're leaving off. We just got our models prepped last session. So we primed them all black. We touched them up with watered down Abaddon black paint. And then we sprayed them with the Zenithal from the top down angle with the Wraithbone spray. When that was done, we dry brushed all the models with some white. And here we are now. So we're actually going to work on just the Stormcore Mercenaries. The characters, the fun characters, will be saved for the end as a palette cleanser. And I think the goal today is to paint up a single model with our test color scheme. Now, I know I want them to blend into my army. That means using greens, yellows, a bunch of browns and grays. It's just a question of what color goes where. So, you know what? Because I think I'm just doing this tester today, why don't we come back after each step and we'll see how it looks. So we'll see you soon after the first color, probably green. All right, we're back. And we lied, we did the pants instead. So we knew we were going to do the pants in Basilicum Gray, as we've done pants for other models. So the real debate is where do the green and where do the yellow go, right? So we see that his torso, and it's kind of like a skirt, I guess, has like this quilted pattern. And then the other place that has a major color would be like on his arms, his biceps. On his forearms, there's this other kind of quilted pattern. So I think I'm going to do that snakebite leather. So the real choices are, does the main torso become green or does it become yellow? I think I'm going to go yellow. So yellow twice, like two, there's 3 of each sculpt. 2 of them will get a yellow body and I'll go green in the arms. And then I will flip it for the rest, for the last remaining model where it will be green on the body and yellow on the arms instead. So I think we're just going to commit, folks. So we'll do the yellow and the green and we'll come back after that is done. See you soon. Alrighty, so we have applied the Nazdrag yellow and we've applied the Warp Block green. I wasn't sure what to do his shoulder pad here, but I didn't want too much yellow and I wanted more of a 50-50 mix with the green, so I went with green instead. The next step, I think, is to do all of the straps around the edge of the armor, and the belt and the cross strap across the chests and the things around the forearms here in snakebite leather. And we're going to do probably the feet in Basilicum Gray, and I think we're going to do the calves leather in Wildwood instead of snakebite leather, just to differentiate it. Though, you know what? Maybe we would do it because if the feet are going to be in gray, it's not that much snakebite on the bottom part of the model. So maybe we'll just do the feet and the first straps and decide about the calves when we come back. So see you soon after that. Alrighty, we're back after applying the snakebite leather across the trim of the tunic area and onto the straps and the belt, etc., etc. And now that I see it, I actually kind of want to go back with Wildwood on the calves, I think. I just, for some reason, like the idea of a darker base. And I think the Wildwood will also be used for the dude's hair. and for the bulk of the shield. So I think the middle part, the circular part, I'll do in metal. And the rest I'll do in the Wildwood. And then I think we'll apply the skin tone first before we do the hair with the Crusader Flesh, aka Gilliman Flesh. And then for the sword, I mean, I think we can really come back, finish at this point, is I think we'll do our usual red on the handle, gold for the hilt and pommel, and then the natural steel for the rest. So I think we're going to come back, folks, with this guy completely done. And yeah, we'll just think about it when he's finished, because he's really not done yet, so it's hard to judge. All right, see you soon. And we are back, and we are done our tester model. So as I said, I went over the shield with Wildwood, I went over the calves of Wildwood, and it's actually quite streaky, which I think is fine, because it's going to make it look a little more textured in 3D. I went over the buckles, of course, the Simon buckles. I went over the middle part of the shield. I went over the blade with a natural steel from AK, washed it all with Nuln Oil. And then the handle, because I've got this new contrast red, I went with that instead. Even though it's not as shaded as it could be with the old Mephiston Red Agrex Earth shade combo, I think after the brown wash, it'll look just fine. And lastly, I did the hilt and the pommel of the sword with my gold from AK as well, and I washed it with a brown wash. Skin tone, as I mentioned, was Gilliman Flesh, or I use Crusader Flesh, but Gilliman Flesh should be a fine analog. And the hair was done also in Wildwood. So we are Dunskies, and I do like how he came out. It's hard to judge until he's completely finished, but I think he will blend in quite well. So we're going to leave it off here, folks, and we are going to start the factory painting our next session. But I think we might give a little bit more bonus content with some thoughts on the releases that Chanel's been giving on the Starks, because Starks can be used in Brotherhood, and I've had some thoughts. So stay tuned for some extra content. Hey, and welcome back. I thought as a bit of bonus content, I'd take a look at the leaked Stark cards that Michael Chanel has released on the A Song of Ice and Fire Facebook site. Now, if you don't know, Michael Chanel is actually the lead designer. I believe he's the lead creator as well, but he's one of the main developers of the game regardless. So for him to show off cards, these aren't fan cards. These are actually work in progress cards. We had a clarification from Kids and Crits that these may not be the final version, but just kind of playtester files. But I thought it'd be kind of fun to take a look. There's been a lot of cards released now, and to think about them from a Brotherhood perspective and from a Stark perspective as well. I'm actually a longtime Stark player. It's my first faction, so these guys have a special place in my heart. And maybe later on I'll do another video on the Bolton stuff, since Brotherhood of the Banners can also use Bolton stuff as well. So let's start with the House Armor Berserkers. So right off the bat, stat-wise, we can see that on their lowest rank, they gain an extra dice, and they gain extra morale. Now, the morale is nice, especially stacking with Berserker's Fervor. It means that they're going to be morale 4, 3, 2, which is kind of insane. But remember that morale, you still fail on Snake Eyes. So even at morale 2, you could fail, even though it's unlikely. Obviously, big buff, nice buff. As great as morale 4, 3, 2 sounds, there are ways to modify that with Vicious and Intimidating Presence and Corpse Piles, so nothing is guaranteed. What's of note, of course, is the 10 attacks on their last rank and built-in Sunring, which just really ramps up their attack damage. So previously, I feel like the game design has been pushing towards less attack dice. They're trying to make the game less killy. They're trying to make the game harder to one-tap units. And we saw in the last patch where they, for example, changed Berserker tactics. So I think it's very shocking that they went with 10 attack Sunring on a unit. It's very dangerous in Starks in particular, because you can take Caitlyn Stark, who lets you attack at your highest attack dice, assuming she stays the same. I want to note, of course, that we don't know the full context of the new cards yet. We don't know if Caitlyn Stark still does that. We don't know the new points. We don't know the Stark deck. We don't know the other context. So we're only really seeing a piece of the whole picture, but we're going to just base our thoughts. What if everything else stays the same, right? So yeah, Caitlyn Stark makes this very dangerous. 10 attack Sunring is kind of bananas. And even in Brotherhood, you can take Beric Dondarrion Attachment, which gives you +2 dice. So this unit's going to throw 9, 10, 12 attack dice with Sunring, which is kind of nuts. Even Beric Commander with Sentinel can be very dangerous to get this unit into a charging position. So my thoughts on this are,
I think it's kind of nuts, but at the same time, I've also always said that melee infantry units are the worst units in the game. They have less impact on the game because you can see them coming. They can only really like kill anything by touching them, unlike ranged units or unlike Cav, who almost always get the Alpha Strike. So I am happy to see a big glow up to melee infantry. I just wonder if this is a bit too extreme because 10 dice Sundering is nuts. I think if you just threw in the Sundering keyword, I might have been happy enough. But that's that. All right, moving on to the Stark Sworn Swords, the core unit of the Stark army. I've always liked this unit. I thought they're a solid choice. The critical blow lets them really be unpredictable and can let them really punch up. So how they've changed stat-wise is it looks like they've just got a better attack profile, basically. So instead of 754, they're 765, which is kind of like Eddard's Honor Guard, which is really nice. I am a little surprised because I think for a 5-point unit, 754 was fine. The 5 attacks did feel a bit mediocre, but you're a 5-point unit. Like, what do you expect? 765 is something I expect from like the elite 7-point units. So this is pretty surprising, but welcome, I guess. Again, more killiness. Interesting, as a design choice. They retain go down fighting, which is a little bit different because now instead of one enemy unit, it's any number. And the wording's different on the wound. It's now an unblockable hit, but it's effectively the same. So it's a little bit better for go down fighting. Winter's Bite looks better. Well, it looks different. And I think when you crunch the numbers, it turns out to be better. So it's critical blow. Now let's just look at the old card and just look at how many hits do you get on your second and last rank, assuming no Caitlyn, right? Assuming no Caitlyn to boost you back to your maximum attack dice. So critical blow stays the same on both, but the old card, if you had one destroyed rank, you gain +1 to hit. So +1 to hit means you hit 2/3 of the time, and you've got 5 attacks. So math-wise, I think that translates to 3.3 hits. 3.3 hits. Now, the new version, 3.3 hits, assuming no crit blow. The new version is if you have one destroyed rank, you reroll the dice, and for each destroyed rank, you get +1 hit. Not +1 to hit, but +1 hit. So 6 dice re-rolling, hitting on 4s, should translate to 4.5 hits, and then you get an automatic hit. So it's 5.5 hits. So 5.5 hits versus 3.3 hits is significant. That's an extra 2 hits. That's way more hitting power, right? And then on your last rank, the unit gets to re-roll attack dice and get +1 to hit. So now you have 4 attacks, hitting on 2s, re-rolling. Let's just assume that's 4 hits. That's pretty reliable to get 4 hits, I think, right? The new version, it'll be 5 attacks, re-rolling. So it would be like 3.75 hits. Plus 2 hits is 5.75 hits. So it's 5.75 hits versus 4 hits. You're almost, again, 2 hits above. So the new version is just straight up better on average. Will they stay at 5 points? I mean, it's significantly better, and the go down fighting is slightly better as well. Again, they might keep them the same because traditionally foot infantry are bad, but yeah, the raw numbers suggest that they're going to be getting, on average, 2 hits more, which is meaningful, definitely meaningful. Moving on to the House Mormont Bruisers. So these guys have always been plagued by being terrible, mostly because you just shoot them to pieces. And shooting enemies to pieces is a very real thing in today's meta, with Martells being very popular, Lancer double crossbows being very popular. So looking at their defensive profile, or their attack profile, it looks to be the same, but they gain movement. Movement 6 is awesome, great on infantry. Lets you just position better, charge better, etc. But I'm sad to say their defensive profile is going down to morale 7. So they're more likely to fail a panic test from getting shot. So I almost don't care what their ability text says. They're just easier to kill, and that sounds bad. That was always their Achilles heel, and they did nothing to address that. Now, their actual rules have been reworked quite a bit. It looks like Disrupt is essentially the same. But instead of being an offensive unit that gains keywords on attack, it now gains Taunt and Counter-Strike. So Counter-Strike and Disrupt are always a good combo. -1 to hit, take hits if you miss. That's always great. Taunt has been reworked to be more clear. And this is like a bugbear of mine because I always felt like there was a disagreement on how taunt worked, and then the community FAQ clarified how it works. Long story short, the new version of taunt, I think, matches the community FAQ, which is good. It still, to me, doesn't fit the theme of taunt. So when I think of taunt, what's happening is you have this unit, and they're like, it's like in Braveheart, when the Scottish like throw up their kilts and they moon the enemy, and they're saying fight us, right? So they're saying fight us. If you don't fight us, you're cowards and you get tokens. So if the unit does end up fighting you, in my opinion, they should not gain tokens. But the way it used to work is you target when they activate, and then if they can charge or attack, they had to do it. I would argue with Cavalry, right, that if they use their free maneuver to charge you, they should not suffer tokens because they're still doing the thing. They're still charging you. But there was an argument that they would have to charge you right away, which meant that if you, for example, put yourself at 11 inches and you have movement 5 Cavalry, instead of getting a free maneuver to make the charge automatic, you would have to roll a 6, or you suffer tokens and then you would charge them. So that to me did not seem intuitive at all, but it seems like that's what they intended, because it says here, each time it performs an action this turn that is not an attack or charge on this unit, you gain the tokens. So in other words, if the Cav use your free maneuver, that's an action that is not an attack or a charge, it will gain tokens. So it does turn out to work the way the community fact says it does, in my opinion, but not how intended, not how I think it's meant to be, not how thematically it makes sense to me. For example, it means that if you have, for example, Champions of the Stag for movement 4, right? If you come in long range of them and they activate, you can't taunt them because they can't charge you from 12 inches away, right? But, thematically, I'm like, well, they could definitely move 4, come with an 8, and still charge you. But technically, no. When they activate 12 inches away, they cannot attack or charge, so they cannot be taunted. You have to actually move within 10 inches for the taunt to work. But it is supposed to work when they're in long range. So, anyway, I think it's kind of weird, but it has been clarified. Enough of a rant from me. Moving on to the Mormont She-Bears. So looking at their attack profile, they've actually gotten a little worse with 4 attacks on the last rank. I don't know how they do the math on this and decide that, yes, you need less attacks. This is a 6-point unit, so it's weird that they make them less killy and they make 5-point units more killy. It looks like Warcry has been changed quite a bit. Warcry right now is an okay ability. It used to be OP when it would throw out both tokens on a pass morale test. Now it's only 1, right? The new version is better in that it's not in order, but it's also worse in that it only works when you activate. So you can't move the unit in range, and then when something else activates, throw out the vulnerable token. Very common combo, for example, would be with Tully Cav, right? You move your Mormont She-Bears in range of a target, start of Tully Cav's turn, throw the vulnerable, charge in, smash their face. Now you can only throw it out when you activate, and you may be out of range when you activate. It's also way different in that, well, first of all, you have to see them. Thematically makes sense. Why would someone behind you be worried about a Warcry, right? If you're not like looking at them and shouting at them. And then thematically also, it's kind of reworked that instead of you performing a morale test, they perform a morale test, which thematically, again, makes sense. If they're scared, they should gain tokens. Why are you taking the morale test? But mechanic-wise, I think that's a worse rule for the She-Bears, right? Because you're relying on your opponent failing morale, and most people will take units that have good morale, or they take trees or whatever. Now, the flip side is, instead of getting 1 token, it's both. So it's harder to pull off, but it's a higher reward. See if that's better or worse. I think it's worse, but we'll see. And then when it comes to their resolute strikes, they keep critical blow, and instead of getting +1 to hit like the Stark Sworn Swords, instead every condition token you get to heal or remove tokens. Now you can do it to yourself, that's kind of cool, it's not other, but it requires token synergy, right? Now obviously it's meant to be used with Warcry, but if the Warcry doesn't work, if they've passed their morale, where are your other sources of tokens coming from? Now, NCU wise, I don't think they have many NCUs who give tokens out. I have to double check what Roger Cassell does. He used to give vulnerable if you took the sword. He might still do that. I think he also has tokens which let you reroll attack dice. So I have to double check Roger Cassell. You can rely on the neutrals, of course, Roose Bolton and Shay. And I suppose certain cards like Devastating Impact can also drop tokens as well. But there's not a lot of token play, in other words, with Starks. Like, I don't think there's a lot. So that rule doesn't seem great. So I think this is overall a nerf. From a Brotherhood perspective, I think people were saying that they liked Thoros of Mir in this unit because when they passed the Warcry, you would gain a Faith token. It now doesn't do that. So I don't see this having a lot of value in Brotherhood. Going back, Bruisers I would just not use at all because they're so squishy. And then the Stark Sworn Swords, I probably would not use in my Brotherhood. Like, I think this unit is solid and good. I do take them in my Stark sometimes. But just the way I've been playing, I prefer the Highguard and Pikemen. I have a list that does have Stark Sworn Swords. So they're higher in my I would use them category for sure. But they're not I gotta take this absolutely 100%. So yeah, She-Bears, because of the difference in Warcry, I probably would not take either as results. Even in Starks, I don't know if they would make the cut. Next, we got the Crowningman Bog Devils, who have gotten very, very different. So stat-wise, they are better. Attack-wise, it's a lower degradation. They just degrade by 1, which I think is great and makes sense on a 7-point elite unit. The morale's worse. The morale is 6 versus 5. That is, I think, a big problem because they're so squishy with 5+ armor. You need them to not take panic damage. So it's interesting they made them more killy but less durable, essentially. Now, their role seems to be quite different because before they had Swift Retreat, so if you got attacked, you could retreat for free. Now they're more dynamic in that Swift Strike. So they attack and retreat out and put your opponent in weird positions because they have to pivot maybe. So I think that's better overall. You don't want a rule that only works when you get punched. I like that they can use a movement of 6, jump in, smack, and then jump back out. So I think that's better and more thematic for a ambushing kind of unit. The Poison Tridents has got to glow up as well because instead of having to choose Weakened or the Poison, you get both. That's very strong, especially when you read the Poison card. And lastly, instead of Scout Openings, they gain Poison Traps. Now, I really like Scout Openings as a rule because not only can you use it on yourself so that when you charge over a corpse pile or a bog or use the sword, you get rerolls and precision. You can use it to help your friends who may also be not rerolling because of hindering terrain or whatever else. I particularly like it with the actual Cardinman trackers because it lets their measly hitting on 4s become meaningful. The new rule, though, is Poison Traps. So I did like Scout Openings, but Poison Traps is also very powerful because it just throws on a poison card. So instead of having to attack them melee and drop the card down, I guess they throw blowpipes out and apply poison as well. Now, what does a poison do? Let's take a look. So the old version was if you had a poison counter on you, you took a wound +1 if you had any tokens on you. So you could take 2 wounds for an action. And I played a game against Steve from the shop, who was... The one game I played against him, he masterfully layered tokens on me, and my unit felt incredibly crippled. So this can be pretty oppressive. The new version, I think, is actually more oppressive. So it does the same thing, except if you would gain another chronic poison card, you suffer a wound, and then another wound if you've got poison counters on you. Now, the difference is they did clarify that the old poison card, if you could stack on multiple cards. So if I threw poison on you twice and you remove 1, you still have a poison counter and you will still take damage. The new one says you don't get multiple cards, instead you just take additional wounds. So here's the situation. What if you have 2 Crowningman Bog Devil units and they both throw poison on you and you have a condition token on you from, let's say, Roose, the Envelope, Shay, whatever, right? So you get a poison counter on you. The first one does nothing, it just puts a counter on you, but the second one is going to cause a wound, an additional wound if you've got a token on you. That's 2 wounds. Now, if the bag's been taken and you've got no other token removal, then the second you do an action, you suffer 2 more wounds from the poison counter and the token. So that could be 4 wounds. Now, you could argue I don't need to do an action, right? And I've seen that happen now with Lady Caitlyn, Lady Stormheart, I should say. But not moving a unit, not doing action is pretty rough. It can keep a key piece out of the game. Or what if you have to do an action because you're in combat, right? If you're in combat, you have to attack or retreat and just suffer 2 wounds. And don't forget that the Crowned Bog Devils also apply a counter on you with poison when they strike you in melee. So now to do this combo of double Crowned Bog Devils, currently it's 14 points, 2 7-point units, and you have to invest in some token application with Roos and or Shay. So it is kind of going all in on a very like skew memey kind of build, but I think it could be very oppressive in the right circumstances. So I worry that this might get too good. Moving on, we've got Crowning. Oh, so would I use these guys in my Brotherhood army? The answer is maybe. Probably not, but maybe, right? If I'm going to be taking a 7-point unit, it'll probably be Kingsmen. But honestly, it doesn't seem terrible because you can... Okay, first of all, you can't stack it, right? So it's right away worse because you only get 1 unit. Tokens you can actually hand out with Take Up the Sword, I believe the card is. But I think it's very niche, so I would probably lean towards no, right? If I'm going to take a 7-point unit, I would take something that's a little more reliable. The defensive profile just keeps me away. Having said that, Brotherhood have a lot of healing, so maybe. But I doubt it. I think this would not be the choice to take. I want to say, I've said that before, for like the High Guard and Pikeman, for example, and I was completely wrong, so take everything I say with a grain of salt. Okay, moving on, we've got the Crowning Trackers, which are one of my favorite units in general. So looking at their attack profile, they've gotten worse, right? They lost an attack on the 2nd rank, and they lost a sword attack on the 1st rank. So they just hit a little bit worse. The 2nd attack shot is painful, because 5 decks hitting on 4s is just not that good. And don't forget, it seems like they're losing scout openings from the Crowning Bog Devils for rerolls and precision. But the reason why they lost some stats is because their rules got way, way better. So hidden traps used to be a choice of hits or movement. Now it's both. And I love hidden traps. As a free folk player as well, I still think hidden traps are valuable just for the extra damage, the extra chip damage. But the movement is very powerful, especially in free folk who have Egret to slow down on top of the hidden traps and top of bogs. But even as a Stark player, I took advantage of that as well. So I think that is awesome that it's both now. Mark Target looks like to be the same, and it's very useful in Starks because Starks are very aggressive, so to throw a vulnerable token is fantastic. And then they gain a new rule called Skirmisher, which we saw on the Bloody Mummer Skirmishers. Now, this rule is really good. Forget the fact that they don't gain charge bonuses, which is the reroll bonus, not the lance bonus. They will still get the use of lances, just not rerolls. But where it's more powerful, of course, is if you're not engaged in combat, you can just pivot and march, pivot and shoot a guy behind you. That is very, very strong. Makes him very flexible, and it's very thematic. As a Crowningman Tracker lover, I'm very excited for this rule. However, I have to say, as also a lover of rank and flank tabletop games, I don't like it because I think it takes the skill factor away from positioning your units in intelligent places where you have to keep your line of sight to think about the future, where you want to be, where they will be. This kind of takes away from that. So it's the same reason why Cavalry are too strong. Cavalry also more or less ignore the rank and flank restrictions of getting opponents blind spots. So I don't like that for that reason. They've already shown it on one other unit. I hope they really keep the amount of units that have this rule low because it is very strong in a game of rank and flank. Would I take him in Brotherhood? Probably not, honestly. Again, that one Baratheon / Stark spot is very, very valuable. But I would definitely take them in Starks. I would love this unit in the Stark list for sure. All right, moving on, we got the Tully Cav. So Tully Cav have always been a problem for Starks because they were just way, way, way overtuned, and it was hard to build a list without 1 or 2 Tully Cav. So the way they've changed is stat-wise exactly the same, but the rules have changed. So Lance has changed, and this could be a preview of how all Lance changes. So look at Starfall Knights, Lancer, Catchley, Castle Rock Knights. What are they called again? The Lancer Knights, whatever, should be the same way. So now on the charge, you're going to throw 8 or 7 dice, where it used to be 9 or 6 dice. So it's worse on the top rank, better on the second rank. From a Stark perspective, it's better or worse depending how many ranks you have for assault orders, because assault orders would throw your lowest dice, but if you had 2 ranks, you still threw 8 attack dice. Whereas now assault orders throws 7 dice, right? So it's a little bit worse. And again, I think this is good. I like the idea of one-tapping people less. So I think that throwing only 8 dice is a good thing, which is why, again, I'm surprised that Berserkers got 10 on their last profile. Yeah, and then their Rally Banner rule, which is the big bugbear, has been completely reworked into Inspiring Charge. So Rally Banner meant that this unit, if it had a Winterfell Guardian, would heal 2 wounds every pass morale test. Notably, if you got shot by crossbows typically are 6 shots hitting on 3, so that's 4 hits. 4 hits of Sundering on a 3-up save is 2 wounds usually. So you take 2 wounds, but if you pass morale, Rally Banner and Dauntless would heal those 2 wounds back, and it would just be no damage at all. So now you will take 1 wound, assuming Best Panic, because you still have Dauntless, assuming, what's the word? Not assuming. We're just assuming that regardless. But Inspiring Charge means that when you charge in, you will heal 2 wounds to a friendly unit within 12 inches. So, I can't help but think that, you would still take 2 units of Tully Cav, and they would just charge and heal each other while dealing damage. And I can't help but think that this sounds really good with Robb Stark. Robb Stark has 2 cards that makes this really powerful. One is Sudden Retreat, right? If your opponent charges you, that negates the knights in general, but now you can sudden retreat out, charge in, heal somebody, deal lance damage, etc. And he's got Hit and Run. So Hit and Run means that if you charge in, you can just bounce back out, which doesn't sound that good because you've activated, you can't charge again, but Starks have Assault Orders, so you can play Assault Orders, charge in, deal your 7 hits, heal a friend, Hit and Run, back out, you're unactivated, ready to charge back in again. So that sounds really good for Robb Stark, and if nothing else changes, I definitely think Robb Stark lists with 2 Tully Cav can be a real thing. Now, in terms of Brotherhood, you can't help but compare them to Sword Knights, assuming they're still 8 points. They are very similar, right? They heal 2 wounds. They're better because it works off the charge and not killing a rank. It doesn't have to kill a rank, right? And it can heal anything, but it's worse in that it's only off the charge, meaning you can't take the sword, kill a rank, attack or kill a rank, and heal 2. Which, in my experience, Sword Knights often did. When they took the sword as an opening move, you had rerolls to hit, you might be in the flank, you can often kill a rank off, heal 2, and then activate kill a rank off, heal 2. It's less likely to charge more than once with Tully Cav, so it's a bit worse that way. Having said that, I think I would still take them in a Brotherhood army. We take Sword Knights and Tully Cav, and they kind of heal each other or heal infantry and just synergize a little bit better. So I think this is definitely still a very viable choice for Brotherhood. And lastly, we've got the Tully Sworn Shield. So stat-wise, they've gone slower, which is a big deal. That was always an issue with them, is that it doesn't really matter how hard you are to kill or how dangerous you are if you're move 4, because you're so predictable and you can just see them coming and avoid them, slow them down with bogs, palisades, whatever. Their attack profile's gone better in that they degrade less on the second rank and they hit on 3s. Now, of course, as a Stark player, I love that. I love that my units that are using aggressive Stark cards hit on 3s, have more attack dice. But thematically, I liked that they had a very defined role before, and they were a defensive unit. So I understood the 4+ to hit, even though I didn't like it, right? So yes, power-wise better, theme-wise kind of confusing, even though I understand Chanel wrote that these are Sworn Knights, why are they hit on 4s? They're well-trained, they hit on 3s. But again, the theme of being a defensive unit kind of watered down a little bit that way. Shield Wall has also been improved. It now works against all attacks, not just melee, which is great, so it's going to reduce the amount of softening up from shooting, etc. And Sentinel has been changed. Sentinel replaces Stubborn Tenacity. Now, before Stubborn Tenacity, I think was a fine rule. You often pass your panic test on 6 or near a tree, if you're near a tree, for example. And you can shoot into combat and cause more damage, which is a very common trick. The new rule Sentinel, which is good because it's going to help you with your movement forward, get closer into range. The interesting thing is that Sentinel has also been reworked to include the word attack. It used to not include the word attack. So it's more relevant on a unit that shoots. If you have Golden Company crossbows, for example, and someone attacks a unit, you can now shoot back straight up and just get an extra attack out of it. That is very surprising to me that they did that. Thematically, I get it. When your unit with Sentinel was in combat, that Sentinel rule kind of didn't do anything anymore. But I also feel like they're trying to take away extra attacks from this game. Like they changed Motivated by Coin to not give you extra attacks. Here is now a source of extra attacks. So I wonder if they're going to take that out in the final version. It also means that if your unit with Sentinel is engaged with an enemy and they're engaged with a second friendly unit of yours and they attack that unit, they'll get hit by Sentinel. That's a very niche situation, and I don't know if your opponent is aware that you have Sentinel, if they'll ever attack another unit when they'll get attacked back for free. Would only do it, of course, if this unit was almost dead and attacking them was worth it to kill them, get a point, kill an activation, even if you suffered an attack back. But I think that is super niche, so I don't know how often that will play. It'll be very relevant, though, in shooting units. So, would I take them in Brotherhood? Probably not. They're just a bit too slow, and Brotherhood don't have enough movement tricks to make it worthwhile. Yes, they have the Forgotten Fellowship, and yes, they have Sentinel, but I don't know if that's enough to overcome it. They're a cool unit. 3 up Steve Shield Wall is tanky. And healing this unit would be very good because every wound they must have earned with blood kind of thing. But yeah, again, take what I say with a grain of salt. I didn't think I would take Highguard and Frankman, and here I am now. Anyway, folks, hopefully you enjoyed that analysis, and I will come back eventually with some Bolton analysis as well. So thanks for listening, folks. Keep the faith, keep up the painting, and we'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.